Well, good morning, folks. It's June 17th, 2020. We're here at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, again with Garry. Goff is with us again today. And we're the home of the most touchable warbirds in Texas. And the airplane we're going to talk about today is our QF-4S Phantom. And what we're specifically... Hi, Carl. Oh, Carl's going to keep us honest. He was an F-4 guy.
Cool.
The thing we're going to talk about today is that this particular airplane that you see in front of you was on the USS America in 1974 on September 11th of 1974 when the Marine Corps had its first and only all Marine Corps crew MIG kills of the Vietnam War. So this airplane was in VMF-8 333, which means Marine Fixed Wing Fighter Attack Squadron 333, call sign Shamrock. And this airplane was on the America during the time of the story that we're going to talk about. The real Shamrock 201 was destroyed in the encounter that we're going to talk about. Hi, Mike. Good to see you again.
What we want to do is we spent this time telling you about the specifics of each aircraft. So that was phase one. Now we're entering into phase two, where we want to, each one of these aircraft that are here are combat veterans. They've actually done something in combat. And so what we want to do is to bring alive the story in combat of how this aircraft was successful or not successful in its battles.
So on September 11th, Trip Trey, as it's sometimes referred to, was on the America and was going to be part of a weather recce for an alpha strike. Now, an alpha strike means a big gaggle of airplanes that are going to go in to attack a target. We're going to move a little bit here so we can get away from the noise of the highway. But so they were going to be part of this big gaggle, and they were going to go out in a weather recce, which means that they were going to go out ahead and take a look and see what the weather was going to be like. Well, and after that, then they were going to take part in what's referred to as a MIG cap, which was a combat air patrol. This particular case, looking for MIGs or to protect the alpha strike from MIGs. So, but what happened is that they got launched because they got contacts of bogeys in the area.
And bogey means, or bandit, is a bad guy. And so when you get a vector, you'll get a vector and a mileage whenever you have contact on an enemy aircraft. So they're actually tanking, they're actually getting refueling when they get that famous call of bandits 290, 60 miles. And they drop off the air refueling and they turn like the burners or the blowers, what we call afterburners, and they start heading directly to the target that's 60 miles away, going at least 500 knots. So they're going 9 miles a minute. They're going to close 60 miles in no time.
Now they're talking to what's referred to as a DASC, which is a Direct Air Support Control Center, that's giving them vectors to the targets because they're not seeing the targets that they've been notified about.
Because this is going to be the guy in the back, or Gib, or Rio, whatever you call him. The person in the back is the guy working the radar, and he is working furiously, he and the wingman both, because this is before you had a true look-down, shoot-down radar. And so he's trying to find the target in the midst of all the ground clutter. And sometimes you'll see that on a weather report, where you see a bunch of green stuff around the weather that's rotating around your city weather. That's ground clutter, and you've got to find a target. So these two guys in the back are working feverishly trying to find the targets en route, and they're doing it, have to get it in just a couple of minutes, because guess what? They're going to be over the target.
And these guys are flying together. Now, this is not like you would see at an air show. They're not in a wingtip formation. They're flying in what's referred to as combat spread. So they're 8,000 to 9,000 feet apart, half mile or so, something like that, a little bit more than that, wing on wing. So that gives them mutual support. They can see somewhat to their 6 o'clock position behind them, as well as the opposite side of the airplane. So it's a kind of a formation of mutual support as they're heading in. And they're calling and they're asking, where's the target, because they're not picking it up yet.
And they keep saying, blind, I can't see it, give me help.
Now they're working in and they're getting closer and closer, and they're going in at the speed of heat on this thing. So they're going in at 500 miles an hour.
What we want to show you now, if we can walk up to the jet, is what the armament that these guys are carrying. Now remember, this is early on in the air-to-air missile range. They're going to have 4 radar missiles called an AIM-7 Sparrow, and it's going to be stuck up in here. And you can see right here, you can see there's the cannon plug that allows you to talk to the missile and how the missile hangs here. These are the ejector racks, so that when you fire a radar-guided missile, this thing pushes down, and literally you can feel on the aircraft actually jerks a little bit, a big thump, as they take this 500-pound missile and eject it off the airplane. It's got a little umbilical cord to it, and when it gets to a certain part and it gets pulled out, the motor lights. So it's going to go away from the aircraft before the motor lights. In addition to these, there's four of these. In addition to those, the neat thing about the Marine Corps, which we found out later on, and when you step up, watch your head, is right here on this station, you're going to have 2 racks on either side that's going to hold 4. You can have 2 here and 2 there. AIM-9, they were at the time Deltas, Sidewinder missiles. And these are heat-seeker missiles, and what's neat about this one is that the Marine Corps is flying with the latest version of the Sidewinder in that it had a cooled seeker head that was used nitrogen to cool it, so it could see heat sources so much better than the old ones. However, there's still the old guidance system. The neat thing about the AIM-9 Ds, Deltas, is that they were able to fly for 3.5 seconds as opposed to the normal 2-second burn time of the previous missiles.
So these guys are going in. They've got a weapons load that is not what would be considered a normal weapons load for a Navy fighter. And while they're getting in closer and closer to the target, they start to realize that they're coming down. They're having to come down in altitude to meet these targets. They finally realize they have visuals on the targets, and they've got them on radar. They've got the targets. They go in. And one of the first things they figure out is that the MiGs that they're seeing are right over the head of the MiG's home airfield.
I mean, can you imagine, watch your head when you stand up. Can you imagine that you're rolling in from a high to low intercept? You're above the target because the targets are down around 500, 1,000 feet, and they're circling their own airdrome where they have a whole lot of other MiGs there. This is insanity. But these 2 guys, because they're Marines, they're going in because they've got bandits to go take care of.
Well, and they got their wingmen with them too, and they notice a kind of a baby blue colored MiG, and they did a MiG-21, and they decide to go after that airplane. That's going to be their target. So now they're down low. They're down 1,500 feet, and one of the things that this F-4 Phantom doesn't do well is turn. And so they get down into a low altitude, high speed turning fight with a MiG-21.
And one of the things that is interesting, when I was flying F-15s to fly against F-4s, we were told that when an F-4 gets into an engagement, a turning fight, that it has to roll the wings and then pull back on the stick to start a 7G turn. But from then on out, he can't use ailerons to turn. Is that correct, Jim?
Yeah, it's pretty much. You couldn't use them a lot because you're going to lose some control. So you use the rudders a lot to move the nose of the airplane around.
Which is interesting for me because I'm an all-aileron guy, man. I can turn the airplane around. I didn't use the rudders except in slow-speed fights. So if I were flying it, I probably would have put aileron in instinctively and departed control flight and crashed. So it's good news I'm not flying an F-4.
So these guys are now in the fight. We're going to walk over to the A7 so you can see an AIM-9. So these guys are in this fight, and the MiG at first is at 12 o'clock, and they start to realize that the MiG is gaining on them. The MiG is starting to get at their 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock position, which means it's only a matter of time before the MiG is behind them. So this is at the point where they start to launch missiles.
And they're going to launch the radar missiles at first, but still, it's just too difficult for the radar to see it. So they've actually launched all 4 radar missiles with no luck. And now they're down to their 4 heat-seeking missiles. And if you look here, this is kind of a representative of an AIM-9. This would be the seeker head. And we painted it black so you get a kind of an idea. And it's cooled there. And inside it's got a little seeker head in there, like a little radar that locks onto a heat source and moves this way. And then it moves the fins to direct it, to get it to go whichever way you want it to go.
So these guys they're in the fight. They can't do much. They're in this level, turning, horizontal fight. one of the worst situations
Yes.
that an F-4 can be in, and they can't go skyward and just point their nose up and go high, because if they do that, the MiG is going to be right behind them and smoke them. So they've got to stay in the fight and try to get to an advantage somehow. They can't do what's referred to as yo-yos. Yo-yo is where, if you're in a level turn, you dip the nose down a little bit, or you take the nose up a little bit, and you try to decrease the radius of turn that's going on. And so you can't do that. They're so low to the ground at this point that they can't do yo-yos. So they've got to just try to stay in the fight.
So if you can imagine, here's the bad guy, and here's the F-4. When the bad guy starts to turn, because the MiG has a better turn rate than the F-4, as they're fighting, the MiG is turning here and the F-4 is going outside the turn. And if you go outside the turn, you can't shoot them, because you've got to be able to point at the exhaust for this missile to find it. It's in like a 40-degree cone, and it only has a 30% kill ratio. So you've got to be right in the heart of the envelope, which is about 2 miles, a mile to 2 miles behind it. And if you get too close to it, it can't see it. If you get too far away, it's never going to make it. So how, if we're both pulling as hard as we can, how do I get my nose over here when I've got the ground right here?
So the other thing is, this is all taking place in less time than we've already talked about it. These engagements, air-to-air engagements, Cunningham used to talk about his MiG kills as being in the range of 42 seconds, 40 to 42 seconds per engagement. So this is going by really fast, and heart rates are pumping. And these guys have realized now that they've thrown 4 Sparrows out that have not engaged. They've got 2 Sidewinders, and they're not in a good position here. But now all of a sudden, Dash 2 has been trying to wait around and be high cover for as long as he can, says, I'm bingo, which means I'm out of gas. I got to go back feet wet. I got to get back to the boat. And so he makes the turn and goes. Well, something really strange happens at this point.
Very strange.
The MiG all of a sudden disengages from Little John and Bear Lassiter.
After 4 radars and 2 heat-seeking missiles have been shot at it. Now, Bear's got 2 more left, but the MiG doesn't know that.
But the MiG doesn't know that, so somebody's helping him. So there's a Dask or somebody on the ground control with the MiG that's talking to him too, and says, they've shot 6, they're probably Winchester. Winchester's a term we use, it means you're out of bullets. You've got nothing else that you can use. So the MiG knows the other guy is going straight back to the boat because he's almost out of gas, and it sounds to him like he's got an easy kill. So the MiG all of a sudden makes an abrupt turn and goes after the wingman, which leaves Lassiter and Little John, or Little John and Bear.
He's here, and all of a sudden the MiG does this. Oh, thank you very much.
Target.
This is going to be a kill right here. Whoosh, there goes the missile right up in his tailpipe.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. That was kill number 1. So then after that, they've got the kill, and they roll out because they're down on gas too. Dash 2 has already said that he's got about 2,200 pounds of gas, which is nothing in an F-4. I mean, Garry and I were talking earlier, and that's like saying the needle is bouncing off empty, and they've got to get feet wet and get back to the boat. Now, Little John and Bear, they've got 1,700 pounds of fuel left. And so they're in a situation up by Haiphong, now just south of Hanoi, where they've got to get back to the boat, and they can't go through the safe area. So they're going to go right through Haiphong, right over the harbor, right over town.
Right over where all the surface-to-air missiles and all the AAA are that defend Hanoi and Haiphong. I mean, you couldn't have picked a worse route to go home on.
No, about this time, they start to see that there's another MiG that's trailing Jim Brady's airplane.
Yeah,
It's a black one. And so Little John and Bear said they're going to try to close on him because they've got 1 Sidewinder left. And as they're closing in on him and getting closer and closer, they finally got to a point and got a solution. They fired the missile. They were a little bit on the outside of the envelope, and so they saw smoke trail and the MiG broke off. Well, about that time, they're over Haiphong, and they start, and it's a whoops, because now they're getting AAA fire to the point where Little John said he looked outside and all he saw were holes in the wing of his airplane. The guys in the other airplane said, "You guys are on fire," and they said, "We don't see that yet." We don't see that yet. But consider what an F-4 really is it's a container for 2 giant brute engines and a lot of gas.
A whole lot of gas.
I mean, these airplanes were the muscle car of the 1960s. If you want to think about a GTO or a Malibu Super Sport or one of those, that's what these things were, just brute power. So this airplane now is catching on fire. And it catches on fire to the point now they're looking to see if they can get back to the boat and everything, but they're now on fire, and then all of a sudden the airplane starts to tumble.
And they have to, the idea of getting feet wet, which means over the water, because the Navy owned the water. So if you could get over the water to parachute out, you probably are going to be rescued. If you're what we call feet dry, which means you're over the earth and you bail out up there in North Vietnam, you're going to become a POW. Prisoner of war.
So these guys now, the airplane, they were going to try to do a planned ejection, which is always better than when it's unplanned.
Yes.
But the thing that happens is the airplane catches fire and the cockpit breaks off and it starts to tumble.
I hate it when that happens.
So you've got two methods of trying to get out of an airplane. One is that you can have a handle between your knees in your lap, and you try to pull that handle. The other one is a face curtain that's over your face. These guys are getting thrown up to the top of the canopy. I mean, they are being pinned up in the top of the canopy, and they cannot reach the ejection handle between their legs. So they are furiously trying to get at their face curtain, not knowing, and they're at low altitude. So some of their comments were they were expecting to hit the water at any time and die, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're out of the airplane.
No one knows who pulled it. No one knows.
Yeah, they don't
They're
know.
both gone, out of the jet.
But they get out of the airplane, and then it's back to training command stuff. It's like they're in their chute, they're coming down over the water, they release their raft, they release their pan, and now they're waiting for as Bear said, he was waiting to see the raft hit the water so he would know when to release the coke fittings on his parachute so he didn't get dragged through the water. So he goes down, he sees the raft hit the water, his feet hit the water, he releases the coke fittings, and then he said he struggled for a while to get into the raft. He's struggling and struggling and struggling, and he finally manages to get himself in the raft head first, and as soon as he turns over, the rescue helicopter is right over the top of him, and the rescue swimmer is saying, "Sir, you need to get out of the raft." And he said, "I just got here." So, but that's how fast it was. They both got picked up. They both got brought back, and all of the crew survived. The real Shamrock 201 obviously did not. It's in the South China Sea someplace at this point in time. And afterwards, these guys were officially awarded 1.5 stars or 1.5 kills. And but they probably went out and put 2 stars on their airplane.
Yep, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were awarded, I think, the Silver Star for this engagement. And what's so interesting is they had Marines flying with other services that got air-to-air victories. But this is the only true Marine Corps flight crew in a Marine Corps jet getting its MIG kill. So this is a famous aircraft, and we would love you guys to come out here, take a look at it, touch it, see what it really looks like with you standing next to it, and get a hero shot next to it.
Absolutely. And we've got more airplanes out here that have got stories like this. We've got the F-111, the 105 that's sitting next here, the A-7, our F-14. They've all got stories just like people do. So we're going to be starting to do this kind of thing where we're going to talk more and more about tactical, or bringing out some of the people who worked on these airplanes and letting them tell their stories. Let's see. Mike, great story today. Yep, it is a great story.
Awesome.
And we think people should know about it. These are not just birdhouses.
Right.
These airplanes all have their own stories. And again, this airplane was on the America when the encounter took place.
This is one of the sister ships of the squadron that they could have easily been flying this one instead of the other one, because it just depends on what jet's ready to go to fly. And to have this actual aircraft that was actually there on the carrier when this all happened is just a real treat for us aviation enthusiasts.
Yeah, we're going to show you the other side of the canopy. We've got Lassiter and Little John and Cummings on this one. On this side, oops, and on this side we've got, we've got Little John and Bear on this side.
Because typically, if you have a jet, you're going to get your name on that jet. That'll be your jet that typically the scheduler is going to try and let you fly all the time because you'll know that one better than all the other ones. Because each one of them has its own idiosyncrasies. When I was flying the F-15, my jet tail number was 522, and its idiosyncrasy was that the radar, all the radars were supposed to sweep 120 degrees, 60 degrees either side of center line, but mine swept like 122 degrees. So I had a little bit extra radar that I could look out to the left and right on. So that's why you have a name on the jet, and you're supposed to typically fly it most.
Well, we got a note here from Carl Schroeder, old friend from Continental in the Marine Corps. And Carl was an F-4 driver in the Marine Corps. And says, great job, guys. Thanks, Carl. If we pleased you, we know we did a good job.
We did it. So we didn't lie too much then,
no,
right?
Not too much. And we both still have our watches on, so they didn't get shot off.
Amen.
So at any rate, this is from Garry and Jim here at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, home to the most touchable warbirds in Texas. We'd like to thank you again for being with us today. We hope you enjoyed it, except for the noise, but the airplane is in that situation near the street. We're going to continue to do these on Wednesdays and Saturdays at noon. If you've got other ideas or stories that you would like us, please let us know. In the meantime, be safe. We're open Saturdays from 9 until 2. And a little bit of an early plug. We're going to have a car show out here on August 8th. And we'll be putting out more information about that. And let me see, do I have... what year was... Okay, I'm having trouble reading this because of the sunlight. You know what? I'm going to pick this up later on, and then I'll answer this question once I get a chance to get inside and be able to read the screen. So for now, from Garry and I, thanks for being with us today. Have a safe week. See you on Saturday.
And don't forget to check 6.
Check 6.